So there's a lot of parents here tonight, and I do want to thank you for sending your kids to Bishop Ryan and allowing Jesus Christ into their education. That's what really this is all about. And we're not, we are not 100% sure that what we're going to show you tonight is going to be something that comes to fruition, but we're going to share it with you and get your opinions and see what your thoughts are. I do see a lot of teachers out there too, and I want to thank the teachers for making Bishop Bryan part of their career choice. I got to tell you, when we get a good teacher during a board meeting, we almost celebrate. So we love you. I know we don't probably you don't see it or hear enough, but we do absolutely appreciate you at Bishop Bryan. This last chapel campaign too, just a little bit about teachers was the Teachers Endowment. We raised $4 million for that so that we could help with increased pay and benefits and hopefully make your life a little bit easier. So tonight, Father's going to go over some of the details of a possible new campus. But I wanted to touch on a few points. First of all, the current facility we have was built in the 50s. It's getting old. There's a lot of maintenance, and maintenance, as time goes by, keeps getting worse. So that's a big issue. We have been through this with architects, with the city, with experts in the community, and the facility's getting old, and it's at some point in time it's going to have to be replaced. So that's probably the number one of the reasons why we're looking at a possible new facility. The second thing is that our student enrollment keeps going up, which is very exciting. I'd love to bring more people into Bishop Bryan, but that's good and bad. This year we had more kindergartens than we had space for, and so we had to put some people on a waiting list, and unfortunately, sometimes we just couldn't get them in. So, and that's tough. That's really tough to not allow families that have chosen Bishop Bryan for their school, and we can't allow them into because we don't have the space. So we feel that more space is going to bring more kids, and it's going to be a good thing for Catholic education. So the next big thing is this, this is going to be a pretty expensive undertaking. It's a very big task. Is this a good time? Is it a bad time? I don't know. God only knows. But we're gonna go through everything to make sure no stone is unturned and see if maybe there's an opportunity to move forward with this dream that we have. So thank you for letting me say a few words. Please continue to pray that we will come to the best conclusion for our students, staff, and our future Bishop Bryan family. And please welcome Father Nelson.
Thank you. I'm really sorry about that technological difficulty. I don't know what happened. We'll try to figure it out tomorrow. But in the meantime, we have important things to talk about. I want to begin by just starting with prayer. And I'm going to pray the Campus Master Plan prayer that, if you can read it, you can join along with me, that has kind of accompanied us through this process. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Come, Holy Spirit, as you came on the day of Pentecost, fill our hearts with your love. In your divine providence, you ensure that the works of those who love you attain the purpose you've set for them. Give success to the work of our hands. Equip us with the wisdom to clearly see the role Bishop Bryan Catholic School plays in your plan for our city. Inspire us with the generosity of saints that we may carry out our mission with confident trust that you will supply everything we need along the way. Grant us courage to face difficulties with hope in your assistance and the willingness to embrace sacrifice for love of you. Spirit of truth, remind us frequently of your words in the Psalm of David. If the Lord does not build the house, those who construct it labor in vain. If the Lord does not guard the city, those who keep watch over it do so in vain. It is useless for you to rise earlier and delay taking your rest at night, toiling relentlessly for the bread you eat. For while those he loves sleep, he provides all of this for them. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So I want to just begin by asking the question,
why did we do a campus master plan? I can tell you it's not because I'm bored. It's not because the school board's sitting on piles of cash and is looking for a shiny new building. It's not because St. Mary's built a new school. It's not because Trinity rebuilt after the fire. The answer to why we did this campus master plan is pretty simple, and it's based upon our response to this next question. Which of these children should we turn away? Go ahead, look at them. Which ones? Front row? Should we just cut the front row? How about the back row? Because they were late coming to the game. It's hard to actually look at kids, not numbers on a page. It's hard to actually look at kids and to say, yep, sorry, these three, yeah, the parents were out of town, so they didn't get their enrollment stuff in on time. So they can't come. But that's the reality that was facing us a couple of years ago before we put the modulars in. I got harangued into Mrs. Steckler's office, because you got to understand, when I started in 2016 with our visioning forum, the goal, and all the way until 2 years ago, the goal was to have 2 full sections and run a waiting list. That was the goal. The goal was to be maximally efficient and run a waiting list, because we can't accommodate anything beyond 2 sections, and we can barely do that. We have to get super creative in this building. And so when more kids began to show up, and these were parents that we knew, parents that have been thinking about sending their kids here for 3 years, potentially parents that already have kids in the building. And Jamie has the horrible task of trying to figure out which ones can't come. They invited me into Mrs. Steckler's office, and they said, hey, so here's the thing. We got, 6 more kids or whatever the number was. We got to figure this out. How do we do this? And so we sat back and we said, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Is it possible? And the wheels started rolling. And the decision was made in collaboration with the board to grow and to light a fuse that we knew would have some outcome that you can't stop once you light that fuse. And I remember looking across the table at Father Adam Mouse, and I said, you guys understand what we're doing? We're lighting a fuse. And Father, what was your response? Light it. So that's how we started down this path of bringing a modular classroom in and moving towards growth. But let's not forget where we come from. Because I think this is a very powerful reminder to us of where we've been not so long ago. And in my mind, the miracle that Bishop Ryan is today. What you're seeing here is an image of a copy from a presentation that former Superintendent Dick Limke gave to a committee in 2010 when we were closing St. Leo's Elementary School. And Mr. Limke had the horrible fortune of having to be the superintendent that walked this school system through the closure of an elementary school. I wasn't here, I don't understand all the details, but I do know what this page says, and I know what the conversation was. And if you can't read it, but right underneath this box, here's the trend. And the trend says, at the current trend, the entire system, Minot Catholic Schools, will be at 0 students in 2027. Surprise, we're not there. So that's good news. Because in 2010, right before the flood, it looked like the future of Minot Catholic Schools was bleak. Today, that is not our vision. That's not our reality, and it's not our future, thanks be to God. Instead, our K through 5 enrollment has grown by 136% since 2011. Okay? Our current K-12 enrollment stands at 438. This is not the trend that we saw. And so what we have to understand, and we live in a world governed by statistics, but in God's world, statistics are not prophecy. In God's world, statistics are not fate. In God's world, He's capable of bringing people back from the dead. Like that's who our God is. He's the guy who raises people from the dead. If you believe. If you're on board. And what I think has happened is that basically God has raised us from the dead. I think that's basically what's happened. No, it doesn't mean that we don't have difficulties, doesn't mean we don't have obstacles, doesn't mean that, money's cheap. It does mean that where we are today, by the grace of God, is not anywhere near what people were thinking was coming down the pipe in 2010. Okay? Thanks be to God. So, this is our recent history, okay? And we're at a point now where we hit rock bottom at a certain level and in a certain way, and God, by His goodness and a ton of blood, sweat, and tears and hard work by generous people that I get to work with every day, we're on the ascent, and it's a beautiful thing. And so the Campus Master Plan is the strategic planning process for facilities. Okay, we did a strategic plan, the Living Our Mission plan, 2018, right? We all remember that. We all remember that, 2018. But the one thing that we didn't cover, and it was on purpose, was facilities, because in 2018. The whole purpose of my life, the whole purpose of the board, the whole purpose of Mrs. Steckler's life was to create the best educational product possible so that there was a value proposition that was attractive to the people of this community to say, yeah, Bishop Ryan, that's where I want my kids to go. It's got a future, it's got a present, they've got wonderful people, they do great things. To make it very difficult for people to say, yeah, we'd like to send our kids to Catholic education, but it's too expensive or whatever the thing is, right? To take all of the excuses off the table as much as possible, because what we're doing is changing lives for the better and giving people something to believe in, something to invest in, something that's going to transform the lives of children in a positive way. And so that's what the last campaign was about. And it's working. I think by all of the metrics, maybe not as fast as you would like, but it's working. We have a great school, and people are noticing. So we get this campus master plan process together, and we can't obviously, if you've got 2,000 people involved in a process, the process doesn't work. So what do? You develop committees of stakeholders that are representative of the broader community that you trust to give you good, reliable, honest feedback about what you're doing. And then you move forward with the process, understanding that that process is hopefully going to bring you to a desirable and realistic result of what you should do, right? So who is involved in this campus master plan? The school board, the president's advisory committee, student representatives, faculty and staff, and then the 430 respondents from our parents, alumni, and parishioners who actually were able to fill out that survey and send that back, which maybe some of you did. So the school board, our 4 pastors, we couldn't do this without them. Obviously, our four parishes are the lifeblood of the school, and the school is the lifeblood of the parishes back and forth, right? Bishop Kagan, and then Mike, who spoke earlier, Katie Schaefer, who's in the back, she's our secretary treasurer, Mary Pro, Tabitha Mars, and Lindsay Wall. That's our school board this year. And then our president's advisory committee, people that I trust to give us great insight, people from all, kind of different segments of who we want feedback from. A couple of people that I thought we were really privileged to have on board here. Vern Dosh, some of you may know Vern. Vern was the chair actually of the Light of Christ campaign that built the new St. Mary's. So they just went through this in a big way. And he was able to give really, I think, helpful feedback to us during the process. Steve Glauser as well, he was the former president of Trinity Catholic Schools. He took the job and then his school burned down. It's like unbelievable, right? It's like, okay, here we go. He's back in the saddle, back at Trinity, gets a call in the middle of the night. Yeah, the school's on fire. Really? And a year and a half later, or 2 years later, they were back in a beautiful new building. Unbelievable. Our student representatives, 2 students from each grade, I think. We started in 3rd grade or 4th grade. And so, the basic question that we wanted to just confirm is, do we believe that the Bishop Ryan student population is appropriate as it is now, should grow, or are we unsure about that? Our board and our president's advisory committee, pretty much everybody says we need to grow. We should grow. Okay? Our faculty and staff, 81% said we should grow. We need to grow. Friends, parents, and alumni. Now this is the question put to our friends, parents, and alumni in the survey. The school building is currently operating beyond its capacity. Temporary modular classrooms were purchased to allow for incoming kindergarten classes to grow with demand. Yet they are not a permanent solution, and even with increased number of classrooms, we will still be turning students away this year due to a shortage of space, which, thanks be to God, it didn't turn out that way. Given this situation, do you believe that students and families should be denied enrollment? 7.5% said that. The school's capacity to enroll additional students should be increased, 73%, and about 20% were unsure because they just weren't able to answer that. It's hard to say sometimes without all the details. And so, here's kind of the board's response, right? Here's the leadership's disposition towards this. In the face of increasing demand for our school, Bishop Ryan's leadership has decided that despite the headwinds of well-funded government schools and rabid secularism, we will seek to accommodate the families for which we don't have space, to serve the families who desire an education in faith and virtue, to invest in the future of our church, and to take a stance rooted in God's providence and the perennial mandate of the Lord to teach all nations. If God did not want Catholic education in Minot, we would not be where we are tonight. In the face of monumental challenges, it is not our strength or weakness that defines our future, but our willingness to follow the call of the Lord. Okay, let me just say that last part again. In the face of monumental challenges, it's not our strength or weakness that defines our future, but our willingness to follow the call of the Lord. Does anybody in here have $75 million that they can just give, cut me a check and I'll just stop talking now? Actually, that's an honest question tonight. No. So what happens is we look at something like this where none of us is capable of doing it, and we get nervous, full of fear, full of anxiety, and thoughts start coming, this is crazy. There's no way. Who do they think they are? That's not our perspective. It's not our strengths or weaknesses that define us, but our willingness to follow the call of the Lord, who owns all the cattle in the fields. So we brought in Habib and Associates, architectural consultants. They had an educational planner, project architect, lead architect, and a project manager that we worked very closely with. We're very grateful for their services. They did a great job. This is an interesting picture because that's actually a picture of the construction of this building that we're sitting in right now, 1957 or so. And they got to work gathering data. Okay, they did like 29 on-site interviews with different groups and individuals. They did a comprehensive space needs assessment. They did a facility conditions assessment, and then we got into the visioning portion. And so I think what's important on this slide, right, is that this is the proposed space summary for Bishop Bryan Catholic School serving K-12 students, okay? Bishop Bryan Catholic School, as we exist right now, our total net floor area is 69,797, and then gross floor area, that's from outside wall, including everything, is 108,592. That we have basically 109,000 square feet in this building, okay? And they use a grossing factor of 1.56 for those of you who are architects or engineers. That means something to you. Doesn't mean anything to me. Then they looked at programming for our school. If you were to actually design a school today and say, okay, it's going to be a pre-K through 12 school, about 440 kids, how many square feet do you program for? Okay, you program for just about 137,000 square feet. So as we currently exist, without adding any other students, we're about 29,000 square feet short of where you would like to be to operate efficiently and with the programming that you want and need, okay? If you then add in additional students at, call it 60 a grade, 60 to 75 a grade, that puts you at 177,000 square feet. So we're about, what is that? We're about 70,000 square feet short of where they would program for 3 sections of students all the way through, okay? The next question that you're gonna then have to face is, what are you dealing with? Like, what is this building? What's going on here? What kind of building is it? What do you need to put into it? You know, are there deficiencies? So they did what's called the facilities conditions assessment, and they looked at our building comprehensively, every aspect of it, including site. So they have site, building envelope, interiors, mechanical, electrical. And they looked at the deficiencies that we have according to 3 scopes. Scope 1 is like your urgent, immediate needs. 1 to 2 years, you really should address these things. Scope 2 is recommended updates. And Scope 3 is grandfathered code deficiencies that were you to do Scope 2, you would be forced to do Scope 3. So basically, once you dig into this building, which is another reason why we haven't dug into the building. Because as soon as we dig into this building in any real way, the city of Minot's going to say, okay, you got to bring all this stuff up to code. Okay, ADA, sprinkler, the whole thing, you know, go through it. And so we've been putting off as long as possible any kind of structural renovations, because we don't want to go down that road, right? So with all 3 scopes put together, And using an inflated cost for time, right? The longer you wait to build a building, generally, the more expensive it is when you finally get to it, okay? Because of inflation. So, gosh knows we've been feeling the effects of inflation. What do I do? It's just right here? Okay. Right, and so we need to think not just of like, okay, if like tomorrow we started building this building, what would it cost? We have to actually think about like, what's it gonna cost by the time we get to building a building if we get there, right? So that's where the inflated numbers come in. And so with that taken into consideration, soft costs for engineering, etc., just to bring this building up to code. Let's say we just said, okay, we're gonna make Bishop Ryan brand new, no more square footage, except for updating our fields up top. You know, updating our sports facilities up top, which is about a $6 million bill, okay? So if you did that, and you just brought this building up to where we needed to be, that's a $31 million price tag, okay? And that doesn't grow anything. That's no more students, okay? So you can about imagine what the next question out of everybody at the PAC's mouth was, and the board's mouth was, when Mr. Habib and his team shared this information with us. What would the next question logically be?
How much for a new school?
So how much is a new school? We're getting there, don't get ahead of us. And so then we went back to the visioning, right? Okay, this is what we're dealing with. Now we kind of know hard numbers of what this school needs, okay? What do we want? What are our options? What can we do to achieve the goals that we have to grow and to do it in a way that's responsible and we get some bang for our buck in terms of return on investment for educational experience, for money put into whatever capital expenditure you're going to have. And you know, so the first thing you need to figure out is, okay, what's the enrollment target that you're going to look at? So we said 3 sections, 50 to 75 kids per class. Okay, and whether it's 50 or 75 really doesn't matter. What you're looking at is numbers of classrooms needed at the elementary and high school level to accommodate, you know, especially at elementary, enclosed classrooms, and then high school, the number of sections you need to plan for, right? So 50 to 70, that's our 3 sections all the way through, okay? That's our target. And then the second thing that you need to figure out is, okay, what are our options for space? First, do you move the entire school population to a new building in a new location? Do you move a portion of the students to a new location and maintain current building with renovations? Do you move a portion of the students to a new location and maintain the current building without renovating it? Do you stay as is with the current population and renovate the building so don't grow? Or do you stay as is with the current population and do nothing? Well, we didn't really like the last one. Stay as is with current population and do nothing. We didn't really like the second to last, which means we don't get to grow. And so the question is, how do you grow? Okay. Couple of things that came out in all of our surveys, all of our conversations. These are important things that came out in this visioning process. First, maintaining the pre-K through 12 on one campus is highly valued, and I think strategically important, and I think there are others who would agree with me there. I think we've come into something, we've been forced into it by circumstances, but we've developed and discovered that there are some real benefits to being under one roof, right? And we don't want to break that up now. I don't want to have to double my administrative salary by splitting principals, and like we're really efficient, and that's allowed us to pay our teachers more. And there's real benefits to the economy of it's not the economy of scale, but the economics of efficiency that we've been able to develop here under one roof, right? Also, there's really one spot for kids to determine whether they're going to stay or leave Bishop Wright. Preschool. That's really the only natural break for our kids. Unless something's going wrong, unless you're moving away, next year, you're already enrolled at Bishop Ryan. You know, when you switch buildings, you have a decision to make. Do you want to go here? Do you want to go to Jim Hill? Do you want to go to Ramstead? Or do you want to go to Ned Rose, South Prairie, DLB? Right? And so we've discovered there's a lot that we come to appreciate about the model that we have now. Okay? Secondly, and this is really important, I encourage you, not at 8 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but at some time, just drive around the building site. There's nowhere to build on the site, at least adjacent to this structure, right? Like, where do you go? And so there are severe, severe limitations that we have on this site for expanding on our current campus, okay? One of the last things here I think that's important. The chapel is the heart of the school. Okay, that came out in everything, how important the chapel is to our kids, our families. And then something that I would just say, and you don't really feel this until you work here on a daily basis. This building, God bless it, we're doing the best that we can, but it's not made to do what it's doing, just in terms of circulation of people, the way things are set up. So we have square footage, but for example, let's just use the old administrative offices, for example. Right, there's 3 classrooms there, right? Well, you got to walk through all the first 2 classrooms to get to the 3rd classroom. Like, that's not great, right? So there's all of these like little kinks in the way that our operations work because we're doing things in this building that it really wasn't designed for, okay? So there are limitations on what renovation could look like. Brainstorming. So then the question is, okay, do we just all one campus, move it all? Do you phase it out so you do a new pre-K through 5 school on a new campus and then eventually a 6 through 12 on the same campus, which is different than this one? Do you build a new middle school, high school, and then keep this for the existing pre-K through 5? Or option D, do you build a new pre-K through 5 school and keep this for your existing middle school, high school? Well, what we thought was going to be the most expensive option, new school, new campus, pre-K through 12, turns out will probably be the cheapest option if you do any of these completely, right? So if you go all in, build a new school in one crack for pre-K through 12, we're estimating about a $70 million price tag. That's at $396 per square foot. That price per square foot is based upon this architect's recent builds in Williston and Dickinson. And that includes soft costs and some inflation, okay? And then the nice thing about that option is that you then get to sell this building or land, okay? So we have then an asset that we can sell to help with what we're doing once you move, okay? Option B basically just means that when you actually do get around to the second phase, so let's say you raise the 41 million for the first phase, and then you hit another campaign on the heels of that for a new 6 through 12, your price per square foot is going up. We don't know what that is, but let's just say 25 bucks a square foot. That's going to be a difference maker in terms of your total cost for the same building by phasing it out. Part of the difficulty we're facing right now too is interest rates. You know, we can't finance anything. So we got to figure that out, and that's what the feasibility study is going to help us get to. Option C, as you can see, you know, a new 6 through 12 building, let's call it 46 million, and then you renovate this building for almost 25, puts you at 71.4, and then the new pre-K through 5, and then you renovate this for 6 through 12, and you end up with 72.5 million. Okay. So when we asked our faculty and staff, A, B, C, or D, what do you think? 84% said A. And then between the other three, 16% chose one of those other options, okay? When we asked the same question to the pack, A, B, C, or D, 95% said A, 5% said C. And I talked to the gentleman who voted C. I just said, I'm just interested in what you're saying. He said, listen, Father, I'm really conservative. I'm just worried about biting off too much. I'm worried about biting off too much. I said, okay, I can understand that. So when we get to the board, let's do the vote. The vote for the board of directors, 100%, to pursue a jump to a new site, new school. And let's talk about the new site for a new century. Okay, we've got land that's being donated right now, 40 acres on the bypass. It's beautiful property. It's flat. It overlooks the valley. It's 10 minutes from everywhere. It's 10 minutes from everywhere. You can hop on the bypass, whether you're in Sawyer, DLB, Earthhold, south of Minot, north of Minot, and pretty much takes the same amount of time to get there from everywhere. Really nice. So thankfully we've got a spot, should we be able to do this, that is going to meet our needs wonderfully. Just to give you perspective on how many acres that is. This site, from that street, from 11th Street all the way up to the Hogan Field and the practice field behind, is just under 18 acres. Okay, so we've got 40 acres that is being given to us. We're on 18 acres right now. A lot of it isn't usable. Okay? So that leads us to the feasibility study. Right now, I am working on building a case statement for a campaign to build a new pre-K through 12 school on a new site. The campaign numbers are not finalized. I got to do a little bit more work because I think part of it is we have to take a deeper dive into the square footage in what that plan what that plan includes, and the operations side of things, right? So right now, because basically you got to remember, we're operating our budget year to year, right? With this facility, you add 70,000 square feet, you add additional costs to maintain that building. You're going to gain some efficiencies. Anybody want to guess how much insulation is in this building? Zero. Zero insulation. None of the windows work. None of the seals are there. Anyway, so you will pick some efficiency up, but 70,000 square feet is a lot of square feet to add. So we got to kind of think through operations side. You know, what kind of endowment do you want to build in as part of this campaign, if anything? Look at some of those things as part of the case statement. And then we're going to go and talk to 40 to 50 of our stakeholders that we believe can really help us meet the goal of this endeavor in one of two ways, well, maybe three ways. Influence, cash, or people that they know, right? Because at the end of the day, this is going to come down to how much cash is there. That's really what this is going to come down to at the end of the day. And so we need to talk to the people that are Bishop Ryan people, say, what do you think of this? Where are you at with this? And, you know, how might you be involved in a campaign? Do you know anybody that would be good to be involved in a campaign? Right? The feasibility study is not the campaign, but it's the antechamber. It's talking about the campaign. Can we do this? Should we launch the campaign? Right? And then those results will come back hopefully end of February to us. We're working with a really wonderful gentleman who's been doing this for a long time, devoutly Catholic, knows the region, knows the area, he helped Monsignor Shea at the University of Mary when they were getting their Vision 2030 campaign off the ground, which is a $300 million campaign, and was instrumental in helping them raise their first $100 million. He comes at it with a wonderful perspective of faith, which is this. Faith gives you the courage to enter into a path that you can't produce the outcome for by your own power. Faith makes you step into a space in which God is able to provide beyond what you can provide on your own. And that's all we're asking to do at this point. Let's step into the space and see what God has up his sleeve. Let's see what the good people that have graduated from and benefited from this education that they've received at Bishop Ryan, how much they value that. Let's ask the people of Minot how important Catholic education is, not just for what happened, when they were able to attend it, but for the next 20 years, 50 years, And let's see what comes out of it. The last thing, so this book is a book that I think is, it's one of the most important books that's been written in the church in a long time. And Monsignor Shea and a couple of his friends, this is their thoughts. And it's from Christendom to Apostolic Mission is the name of the little book. It's just a little book. But basically the thesis of the book is this. When this school was built, 1957, we were living in a very different time. Could we all agree in that? 1957 was very different from 2023. Right? Do you agree or no?
Yeah.
Okay. What we were experiencing in 1957 was the remnants of a Christendom culture. A culture that was imbued with faith, a culture that was built upon faith for centuries. Right? You can go way back. But all of the institutions and the relationship between faith and society in the 50s, right, was very, faith was very welcome in the public square. It was very much taken for granted that the church was a benefit to society. Okay? There was not the kind of antithetical vision of society that we have today, where to be an institution means that you are, a Catholic institution means that you are increasingly distinct from the prevailing culture and the way that you see things and how you operate. Okay? And so the goal of the book is to get us thinking about, as Catholics, how to be Catholic in an age that is more like the age that the apostles got started in than the age of St. Thomas Aquinas or St. Ignatius Loyola, or heck, even St. John, well, no, not St. John Paul II. He came up under communism. Basically, Europe. The Europe that built the cathedrals, right? That society doesn't exist anymore. There's still buildings around, but increasingly there's bars inside and yoga, not mass, right? So he says this in the book that I think is really important for us to just consider, because, and I've been thinking a lot about this, because and I'm going to be honest with you, part of me looks at what's going on in the world and says, maybe the age of schools is over. Like maybe what that was is not what is needed now. Like that's a thought process sometimes because of the changing culture, right? But Monsignor's got a great point here. When Christian institutions have lost much of their spirit and freshness, he says, it becomes tempting to think that the solution is to be found in leaving institutions behind altogether. Spirituality comes to replace organized religion, by which is meant religion seated in institutions. The incarnation of religious ideals and institutions, an essential operation in God's providential plan of salvation, is perceived as inimical to vibrant faith. Given the current cultural confusion and the subjectivist nature of our time, this is an understandable mistake. But it is a serious mistake nonetheless. Properly founding and caring for institutions in which the ideals of a culture are incarnated is the heart of all civilized life. God is very much in favor of proper institutions, as is clear by his founding of them and his insistence on their maintenance. Jesus spent much of his time among his closest disciples laying the groundwork for the institution that he himself would inhabit by the Holy Spirit, which is the church. And so, every time I get going down the road of saying, like, maybe schools, like, gosh, they cost a lot of money, they're hard to operate, there's so much going against us, like, is this the best way? I'm reminded, if you lose the schools, you have no chance. You have no chance for a cultural bulwark against secularism. If you lose the schools, you lose your last best chance of having a place where you can speak, act, and think like a Catholic. And that's the truth. And I will go to my death believing that, because it's been true over and over and over and over again. How did the communists in Soviet Russia kill one of the most profoundly Christian cultures that we've seen? Schooling. It was the schools that crushed the spirit of the Russian Christians. Don't talk about God, don't acknowledge him, don't act like it. So, when I look at something as monumental as this task that is before us, that I don't have the power to produce the outcome. It's not my job to. And I think, well, God, what do you want? Because at the end of the day, that's the only question any of us should be thinking about, no matter what capacity you might be able to help or not help. The only question that any of us should leave tonight thinking about is this: God, what do you want? What do you want? Not what do I want? Not how is this going to affect my 401k? Not, I'm going to have to give up a vacation. God, what do you want? And if Minot responds to that, asks that question, if our alumni, almost 6,000 in number, ask that question, if people of goodwill who hear about this feasibility study ask that question, I don't have any doubt in my mind that it can happen. There are more millionaires 200 miles west of here than pretty much anywhere outside of Silicon Valley. And it's true, like, economy's hard, I get it, but there are more millionaires in Williston than pretty much anywhere per capita outside of Silicon Valley. Right? And so if we think that 70 million is impossible for God, we need to get a new vision of who God is. That's the problem. The problem's not the number. Number is what it's going to be. The problem is if we think that God can't help us raise 70 million, if that's what he wants, then we need to go back and maybe pray about who are you, God. So, again, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is what we're doing right now is leading us into a direction that says if we're going to grow, we're not going to grow here. We got to have other square footage somewhere else. So where is that? Well, we might as well do it on a beautiful piece of property just west of here. And we might as well do it in a way that makes sense if it's possible. And that's what we're going to ask. So I know that you got a bunch of questions. I'm happy to answer all of them that I can. And then just what's the next step? Okay, I'll get to next steps and then I'll take questions. Okay, feasibility study is happening in earnest. We're developing the case statement. End of February, we should have the results from that feasibility study. board will look at the results, then we'll start moving forward with whatever comes next, okay? In the meantime, what can you do, okay? When you talk to people in the community, speak accurately and not presumptuously about what we're doing. Okay, what we're not doing, we're not building a new school. What we're doing is exploring the possibility of building a new school so that we can grow, so that we can continue to grow. Okay, so we don't have to turn kids away, so that we can refound Catholic education for the next 100 years. That's what we're doing. We're exploring it, okay? If there are people that can help make this happen, I need you to tell me who they are, okay? I need you to invite them to be part of this process. I don't know who they are. One of the things that Vern Dosh said that I think was very important for us to hear, he said when Light of Christ started their campaign, okay, obviously you start with a list of people. You have to start somewhere. Start with a list of people. Most of the people that gave the lion's share of what was accomplished were not on that initial list. Okay? So just because we can't look around this room tonight and say like, okay, 25,000 here, 25,000 here, you know, once you start down this process, if we're inviting people into the process, that's how you grow the capacity to do this and figure out what the real potential is out there. It's just like Jesus with the disciples, right? You send them out 2 by 2, and you bring somebody back with you, right? And so everybody in here knows people that I don't know. Maybe some of them would be interested in doing something for Catholicism in the next century, right? Just need to know who they are. Okay, we'll take questions. Yes, please.
So when you got the quote, that did not include the land because you were figuring that that was coming without a cost. When they came
Yeah,
up-
land isn't included in any of the figures because we knew that it was being donated.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Can we see the map that has the, yeah,
So, yep, this is 19th Street. Okay, so down here, St. John's. St. John's is down here. Road that goes out to the Barden is down here. This is a half mile north of that underpass on the west side of the bypass going north. And when you drive by, it'll have a sign that says 131 acres for sale. That's the spot. And so what's beautiful about this site is that utilities have already been brought down onto 19th Street. So this piece is what's going to be given to us. There's not a ton of work that would have to be done to bring utilities to it. And eventually it sounds like there may be a golf course or a park or something going in over here. Yeah. 19th Avenue, thank you. Any other questions? Yes. No, the modulars will get us through what we need to get through until we figure it out.
question before you answer it?
Yes, thank you. So the question was, are you going to have to bring more modulars in? And the response is, no, I don't think so. Based upon our current enrollment trends, they will be sufficient until we do whatever we do. Any other questions? Yes.
How much do you have to raise before you can go through and start?
Yeah, so how much money do you need to raise before you can start? I have to talk to the bishop about that.
But it's millions, right?
Millions. And the other thing to think about, again, we're not interested in financing $20 million at 6%. Okay? That doesn't work. So we gotta raise a ton of money and have a ton of money in hand before you start turning dirt. Just say it that way. Yep.
Did you have someone in mind to dedicate to getting zoning accomplished?
Pardon me?
Did you have someone in mind to get dedicated zoning zoning, dedicated to getting the zoning?
We've talked to the city, and the city is on board with the plan, and it will be rezoned when it needs to be. But they have multiple zoning options for us that they're, I guess maybe I don't understand the question in terms of dedicated zoning.
Someone dedicated, who's been planning on getting a zoning in mind.
No, I don't have anybody. We can talk afterwards if you wanna.
Father?
Yep.
Is there a thought or a number that this property could be worth?
We will have it appraised. We will have it appraised. I don't know. I mean, I know if it burned down tonight, I know what our insurance says replacement value is. But that's no ideas, anybody. Do not, that's not, too early. Too early. Yeah, but we're gonna have this property appraised. Yeah, yes.
What is your retention like now from your grades, middles up to high school?
Jamie, can you answer that totally?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Retention rate?
Retention rate right now, so when we started working with Partners in Mission a few years ago, they told us that a healthy retention rate for a K-12 school is anywhere between 90 and 94%. This year we were at 91.8.
So we're about 90,
We're sitting in a
92%
really good
almost.
spot.
Yep, out from K-12. Yep. Yes, sir.
So so do we have an idea who might be interested in this building?
I don't know. I've talked to MSU, they say they're not interested. I think until this property is known to be like, it's gonna be available, I'm not sure that you can, say that, yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So if everything goes right, what would the timeline be when we would start?
Yeah, so I think earliest we could be in is probably 4 to 5 years. It's gonna take 2 years to build the school, 18 months, 2 years to build the school. Somebody maybe smarter than me knows that number. But I don't foresee us raising the money necessary to get started in less than 18 to 24 months. Having it in hand. Yep.
So, and then at this site, when everything's said and done, like we'll have our field and track and everything.
Depends on how much money we raise,
Okay.
right? I think this is all like speculate, because the reality is like these are ideas there's realities behind it, but okay, so what do you do if you raise 62? You finance the rest of it and build the whole thing? Do you cut a little bit here and there and do another phase later? Like all of those questions need to be answered when you get more concretely down the road. Yep.
Was that 70 million? Did that include?
Fields, yeah, that include all the football field, baseball, softball, track, practice field. Yep. Yep, in the back, Michelle.
Father, does that include like an amphitheater?
That would include an
And Jamie said it did-
auditorium as well,
it
and a
did include
chapel. Yeah.
Like all the kids would fit in one
That's,
place.
yeah, 70 is kind of all in on the programming right now. And obviously you have to, we haven't gotten to design. So this is just basically the architect saying they have a model for programming based upon number of students, the kinds of spaces you're gonna want, and they build it, and there's fluctuation there, but it's to get you in the right direction.
And how many gyms would there be?
There would be 3 gym or 2. There would be 2 gyms, 2 big gyms, I think. Yeah.
So the 70 million that we were looking at, like for the new building overall, is that just for a basic building, or is that also including like kind of specialties for like say the little kid section where they have smaller?
It's everything you'd want in a school. Yep. Yep.
So I know the government there anything, programs out there, since it's gonna be a new school, grants?
No, so here's a little secret that I've learned recently. Corporations aren't really happy to give money to private schools, especially if you're religious, unless those people are personally invested in private education. And the government certainly is not really interested in, and we're not certainly interested in just, yeah, so it's a complicated thing. But I will say this, there is a study going on right now at the state level for school choice. They're doing the study after the last legislative session, which passed a kind of school choice bill. Governor Burgum vetoed it. They're studying it. And in the next legislative session, I know that there will be another push for school choice. Now, if in the next legislative session, a voucher program or an ESA gets passed, in which any parent has opportunity to come to a private school, I can tell you our enrollment is only going up, right? And our budget gets drastically different, pretty much overnight, if that's passed. So those things bode well for us. I think there were 30 states that have passed some sort of school choice legislation, and it's becoming increasingly popular nationwide. So I'm not saying it's a shoo-in by any means, but I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic that next time around this thing might get passed. So yes, in the back.
How many students have not been able to enroll right now because of space?
Thankfully, we were able to get everybody in this year. Yeah, and there were a couple that had we said yes earlier, they probably would have enrolled, but because we had on a waiting list and then they're still looking for other options, they don't materialize when you actually make things, fit.
But even at the preschool level?
No, not at the preschool level. We have empty spots in the preschool. Mm-hmm. One of the things I should say this too about what we've done. So we've got 50 kindergartners this year. In third, we're basically not hoping, but planning that 2 of those kids aren't going to be here in 3rd grade because of somebody moving or what have you. So that we can have 2 sections, because we have to have 2 sections. We do not have room for 3 sections in 3rd grade. So we will have to have 2 sections in 3rd grade in 2 years with aides in those classrooms supporting the teachers. So, we don't have any wiggle room at the early entry grades, Okay, so I think that's enough for me. Any last call for questions? Yes.
So, I guess with all the expansion and like the expectation of having more students, can we be kind of assured that, I guess, more people isn't gonna sway like the Catholic values?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, this is a Catholic school.
There are schools that are Catholic in name only, and it's just one of those kind of concerns, especially when you talk about bringing more people in, people tend to bring.
We like people. We're big fans of people here at Bishop Bryan. Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you.